So Mark, thank you very much for joining us. If you'd like to start by just telling us what started you on the journey to developing Aspen. What were the needs of libraries that you were trying to satisfy?
So I've been working on open source discovery for about 12 years now. So I've been at various companies as well as on my own independently. At the road towards Aspen actually started, I was working as a contractor, and we started with ViewFind by Villanova. The consortium that I was working for at the time as a contractor really liked ViewFind and liked what it did, but it didn't do enough for public libraries and consortia. So they really wanted to focus more on the public library side and more on the consortia side. And as part of that development, over the course of those 12 years that I've been working on it now, I was able to sit down with both staff and patrons and do usability studies. And those usability studies were anywhere from 5 minutes as people came up to a desk to sitting down with people for an hour to kind of see how they use discovery, what some of their pain points were, what they thought was easy and what was hard. And those usability studies have really informed the direction of Aspen development for both patron and staff. So Aspen in its current incarnation started about almost 3 years ago now. And the first Aspen Discovery installation was Basin County Libraries, which was a consortium of smaller libraries in Utah. And they'd really been looking for quite a while at getting better discovery. Other solutions for them, though, were either too expensive or they even had vendors flat out refuse to give them a quote. And with Aspen, we really wanted to make sure that first-class discovery was available and affordable for libraries of all sizes and really increase the adoption rate for open source discovery. As part of that, we kind of set out 4 main goals for Aspen that kind of guide our development and really make sure that we're focused on the right things. So those 4 goals are: we want to maximize patron usage of all library materials. We want complete integration with the underlying ILS and e-content providers. We want to make it easy for patrons to use Aspen, and we want to make it easy for library administrators to customize and maintain Aspen. And we really think that by focusing on those goals, it really helps to make sure that we're really truly satisfying the needs of libraries and their patrons. It's just a great way for us to really maintain that focus and make sure that we're building the right things. In the last year, our libraries came to us and said they wanted a mobile application that was available for their patrons. So we created and released Aspen Lita in the last month for patrons, and we're starting to see really good adoption of that. So we just really like to be responsive to our libraries and their patrons to make sure that they have first-class tools that are affordable.
So in the USA, what are you finding that libraries most like about Aspen? Why is it doing so well for you?
So first, Aspen is really more fully featured than other discovery layers. And our support costs are really competitive. So the first thing that everyone notices about Aspen Discovery is the record grouping, which combines all of the formats together into one search result. We were the first discovery layer to do record grouping in that way. And really patrons, and that was back in 2014. And the usability studies that we were doing at that time and at this time, patrons just love it. It makes it so easy for patrons to find all of the different formats that a library owns. So before that, it was really easy for patrons to not really understand the full breadth of the collection. After you get through 4 pages of Pride and Prejudice, it's hard to find that, oh yeah, on that 5th page, the library does own the audiobook that is what you're really looking for. So that's something that patrons really like. Another thing is we integrate with all of the popular e-content sources, at least in the US. So right now we include support for Overdrive, Hoopla, Cloud Library, Access 360. And again, patrons and libraries love having that content fully integrated. So you're able to search, find everything that's available, and also use it. So you can check it out, place holds, view it. Depending on the vendor, you can start reading right online. You never have to log in again. And that works with Aspen Lita as well. So especially with something like Overdrive, you're able to go straight through. If you're using the read online function, you don't even really need to download Libby. So it's a great way to kind of simplify, and again, make sure that patrons see everything that you have. A lot of other discovery layers won't include all of the e-content. So it may be that you're paying a lot for something like Access 360, but if that's not integrated into the discovery, patrons just won't find it and won't use it. And kind of along those lines, we work with most of the major ILSs, and that helps just increase adoption. So no matter what ILS the library uses for their staff, patrons can have a great user experience with both web version and mobile devices. So that's really a big win for libraries, and we're seeing a lot of adoption, not just on Koha, but on other ILSs as well, which really gives libraries the flexibility to choose the tools that make the most sense for them and their staff, as well as their patrons, and to be able to make the choice for staff versus patrons independently. We also branch out beyond traditional discovery to give libraries the ability to integrate things like events and digital archives into Aspen. So when I was younger, I really enjoyed reading about the town that I live in, and I was going to the library and trying to find digital resources or just history books about the town. I found a bunch of books. What I didn't realize until probably 6 to 8 years later was that my library actually has a huge digital archives collection with information about the town, but it was so hidden on the website that I never knew that it existed, even though I was exactly their target market. So with Aspen, we allow that information to all be discoverable directly within Aspen. So as people are doing research into histories of town, or students are doing reports, they can find primary resources. We really just want to make sure that those collections are accessible to patrons. And then just in the last, it's been a little over a year now, we introduced a web builder feature. So libraries can use Aspen Discovery for their entire web presence. So we actually allow libraries to create both web pages and menus directly within Aspen. So we found a lot of our libraries came to us and said, hey, we just don't have great tools to build pages and to create forms, to create pages, informational pages, and we want to use those either entirely as a replacement for our current website or as a supplement. So that's been very, very popular. We've got about a dozen libraries now using Aspen for their entire web presence, which is really nice. Just help to give libraries some of those better tools. And then finally, our libraries love the frequency of releases. We release updated code monthly, so libraries never have to wait long for new functionality. We definitely have libraries switching from other tools that are like, yeah, I got one release once or twice a year. And that was just not enough for discovery and for something patron facing, because we all know that the patron side of things, we've got so many tools and websites that are changing so fast. We were just talking this week about button styles, and button styles are something that change and just have different trends. So we can support all the different button style so that things look the way patrons want them to, and we can keep up with modern trends. And to do that, having the release schedule that's more quick is better. And then once more, so at Bywater, we really pride ourselves on our support and work really closely with libraries during the implementation process to make sure that libraries understand all the functionality within Aspen Discovery and customize it to how their library operates. And then, of course, after a library is fully live, we continue to work with them with their questions and helping them with new features. And we'll talk more about it later, but also working with them to try to figure out what else we need to build to improve Aspen Discovery and Aspen Leda and make it better for them.
What is it that you think makes Aspen a great front end for the Koha library management system?
So although, like we were saying earlier, Aspen works with nearly any ILS, using Koha for the ILS gives the most functionality. So using Koha, the setup of Aspen is much easier than with other ILSs. And also we're able to pull a lot of the settings directly from Koha, so you don't need to configure things in two places, which is really nice. Just makes it easier to configure and set up. So it's always hard when you have to do redundant information. So we want to streamline all of that for our libraries and librarians. And then also Aspen Discovery gives a more modern front end with lots of features that patrons love. And over the years, like the big thing that I've learned about libraries is that we all do things a little bit differently. We all live in different communities. We have different collections. We have different policies. And with Aspen Discovery, we don't want to force everybody to do the same thing. So just like Koha is very customizable so that it fits your workflows and it adapts to you rather than you adapting to it. Same thing with Aspen. We want to make sure that it can be customized to adapt to each library's unique needs.
Aspen's an open source platform. So what are your hopes for the Aspen developer community? And how can libraries adopting Aspen contribute to that community?
So just in the last week, we had a meeting of all of our support companies for Aspen Discovery, and we wound up having companies from 4 different continents that are all supporting libraries in their regions with Aspen, and they're all working on contributing to Aspen. So it's a very exciting time for Aspen. The adoption rate has been tremendous, and the amount of international support is just amazing. So we're really thrilled to have so many people interested. One of the first impacts of that is a lot of the different translations and the localizations. So Aspen's got a very robust translation system built into it. We, even within a single language, so for people using Aspen in English, we don't force the same terminology. People can translate the text of Aspen even within English. So like we were saying earlier, every library is a little bit different. So what one library may call freeze and thaw holds, another library might call suspend and unsuspend, or suspend and resume. And we don't want to force libraries to pick a language. We want them to use whatever resonates well with their libraries. With one of our support companies, though, we've been working on having Aspen translated into Arabic. So they've done a lot of work on that translation, and also added right to left support. So we want to really make sure that we're meeting patrons where they are, and that we're really working to support them the best. We don't want to say, here's a solution that's okay for you, and yes, you can read and understand what it's doing, but it doesn't really seem native. And since we're not native Arabic speakers, we're not good people to do that. So working with some of the different support vendors internationally has been a great way to understand all of those different regional differences. We're also looking to see support for several different new e-content sources. So although some of the e-content sources we mentioned earlier are available internationally, there's a lot of other ones that are available internationally that we want to see support for as well. And we've definitely talked with the developer community about adding those, which is going to be wonderful to just be able to support more of that. We're also actively soliciting library feedback on new features to build for Aspen and ask libraries to help us test new releases of Aspen. So several of our sites host test instances and work with us as we put out new functionality to make sure that it meets their needs. Because of that amount of customization that we offer, and because each library is a little bit different, each library may have different reporting needs and that kind of thing. As we talk about like e-commerce integration, it's what works well if you're doing a PayPal integration may need to be a little bit different for a Comprise integration or something like that. So we're really working with libraries to make sure that their needs are well met. As part of that, Bywater Solutions hosts a monthly community meeting that all libraries are welcome to attend, whether in the US or internationally. And during that meeting, we're talking about different aspects of Aspen and talking directly to libraries about their priorities. And since it's hard for people to make one meeting, we do run polls to make sure that anybody who can attend the meeting still contributes and can still give input. So it's not just a case of if you can make it, that's the only way that you get the input. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing the collaborations continue and to see new libraries adopt Aspen Discovery and Aspen Lida in more places. And I'm really excited for a time where, like Koha, we have Aspen Discovery conferences in both the US and internationally, where libraries and developers can get together to work on Aspen Discovery in a collaborative environment.
So what are the current top roadmap goals for Aspen?
So some of the things coming in the next quarter to the next year, and of course, it's always a little bit hard to pull out the crystal ball, but definitely some of the things in the next quarter will be there. The next year, it's going to depend on some of the library feedback that we get since priority shifts. And a year and a half ago, we definitely, or 2 years ago, we definitely were planning to do some different things and focus has changed with the pandemic. So we need to react to all of those things. But some of the big things that we're looking at are both Evergreen and Folio integration. So these are kind of the last two major ILSs that Aspen Discovery needs to integrate with. We've got a lot of interest from libraries using those platforms, both in the US and internationally. And those are also some integrations, especially the Folio integration is probably something that we're going to be looking at building with partnership from some of our international partners. So really excited to work on some of those last two big ILSs. Another area, so we've got EBSCO EDS integration that a lot of libraries are using. But we also have a lot of interest and a lot of usage of EBSCO host. So it's going to look a lot like the EBSCO EDS integration, but allow EBSCO host to be used in place of EBSCO EDS. So then you don't have to have that EDS subscription as well. So that's going to be exciting to do. And of course, Aspen Lida, we released just last month to the public. So we're going to continue to do a lot of work on that. One of the things that we've had a lot of interest from our libraries is being able to rebrand Aspen Lida so that it's specific to an individual library, so that a library could have their app listed within the app stores and have their logo, colors, and those kind of things, and just go to their collection. So we really think that's going to help increase the adoption of Aspen Leda, and also help libraries to best communicate directly with their patrons. We're working on some more e-commerce platforms. So we've got integrations now with 3 or 4. There's at least 2 or 3 more that we'd like to add, just so that our libraries have a lot of flexibility with the different payment methods. It's so often something that a county requires, or whatever the governing institution is what's dictating those e-commerce platforms. So we want to make sure that we have enough different options that libraries can choose. And then integration of additional event platforms. So right now we're integrating with Library Market's library calendar, and we want to allow libraries to use additional providers. So definitely things like LibCal, because event promotion is another area that so often is hard for patrons to find. A lot of times you have to know where on the website to go. And with Aspen, we bring it directly through into the discovery layer, which just makes it that much easier to find. The next big area that's super exciting to me is sharing content. So we've got placards, translations, browse categories, lists, all kinds of different content that's created within Aspen by a library. Our libraries have expressed the ability to, or the desire to be able to share that content with other libraries. So if one library is creating a placard for language learning using Mango languages, other libraries can replicate that. And if one library has a great resource on read-alikes for a particular book, they could share that. And we really want to make that easier for libraries. And we're really looking forward to seeing libraries be able to do a lot of additional collaboration. We really think it fits into the open source model, where it's not only open source software, but open source content as well. And librarians are so great at collaborating that we really want to encourage that and see all of that sharing. Again, with Aspen Leda, there's additional functionality that works best in a mobile app that we're looking at adding. So things like self-checkout and patron notifications. By being able to scan barcodes, we'd be able to potentially do some of that self-checkout and make it easy for patrons to do that. And then apps are a great way to send patrons notifications. So one of the things that, well, I know I get enough email that I don't always have time to look at all of the emails. So, but when an app pops up a notification, it's easier for me to see. So if we can do that for things like, hey, your book's due tomorrow, or your book's due today, or the library is closed today, those would be great things that are really best suited to a mobile app. So some different ways to communicate with patrons that way. And then, of course, as we look at these and other features, we're closely working with our partners and the community in general to ensure that we're always working on the right things, and we're really, as we said earlier, looking forward to collaborating with some of the other groups working on this, collaborating with PTFS Europe to continue to build Aspen Discovery and make sure that it really works for our libraries as well as internationally. It's a very exciting time. So thank you for the opportunity to talk with you all. And I'm very excited to see the community grow and evolve, and look forward to hearing all of your input and being able to see all of your libraries go live.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's been great to spend time talking to you.